have made your selection, you will be provided with a If you're preparing for the Spanish DELE B2 exam and are finding things to get a little overwhelming, then let me help you out. Some of you have been requesting me to make videos of my experience with the Spanish DELE B2 exams. So when I sat down and actually thought about it, I wanted to start by making videos on the part of the exam that was more difficult and challenging to me, and that was of course the examen oral. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you how I prepared for the Tarea 1, specifically Tarea 1 de Interacción y Expresión Orales del examen B2 de DELE. So let's get started. So the first thing to understand is that the examen oral consists of 3 tareas, and in today's video, we are only going to be looking at Tarea 1. The basic idea or what you have to do in Tarea 1 is speak about the advantages and or the disadvantages of a given number of proposed solutions to a scenario. You have to speak and give a monologue for about 3 to 4 minutes, after which the examiner is going to have a basic conversation with you about these solutions or proposals that you have just provided in your monologue. Remember that you only have a preparation time of 20 minutes for both Tarea 1 and those combined. So time management is crucial. So once you're in the examination hall and once you've entered and spoken with the examiner, you will then be provided 2 options or 2 topics, out of which you have to select one about which you will provide your presentation or your monologue. Now, I personally followed a checklist before making my selection of which topic I was going to speak about. And this checklist went as follows. Number 1, the vocabulary. I would first think whether I am confident about the vocabulary that I would need to speak about this topic. So for example, if it was something related to global warming, do I even know what global warming is called in Spanish? Do I know any other fancy words like greenhouse effect or anything else basically related to vocabulary and related to that topic? Unless I was sure that I was confident with the vocabulary, I wouldn't select that topic. So yes, number 1, vocabulary. Number 2, any advanced structures. So when do I get a chance to say something like yo que tú no haría esto? Or just any kind of fancy structures, no diría así, no haría así, any kind of fancy structure, fancy sentences that I would be able to use in my presentation. I would look for opportunities like that. Number 3, a chance to use subjuntivo. This is so important. So I should be able to see at least 1 or 2 opportunities where I can sneak in a subjuntivo structure. So something with my opinions or just a complex sentence which I know for sure requires a subjuntivo. And number 4, I would also try to understand which of the 2 topics are at least remotely related to something I'm passionate about. So this would help me share opinions about it, and it would also mean that I would be a little bit more aware about this topic in general, to be able to speak about this topic. So whenever the time comes to choose between 2 topics, please be intentional and keep in mind these factors like the vocabulary, the structures, subjuntivo, just so that you have enough material that you can use to talk for at least 3 to 4 minutes about that topic. Now, it is very much possible that you will not always feel 100% comfortable or confident about the topic that you're going to select. And that's fine. That is why you will be provided with around 6 to 7 propuestas, proposals in the topic that you will choose. Now, know that it is compulsory that you speak about at least 4 propuestas out of those 6 or 7 that are provided. Using at least 4 is compulsory. If you don't do it, you are going to lose marks. So please make sure that you're at least using 4 propuestas out of all the ones that are listed over there. Once you have made your selection, you will be provided with a Once you have selected your topic, you will be provided with a blank sheet of paper on which you can take down some rough notes and organize your ideas before you actually speak about them. Now, remember, like I said, you only have 20 minutes of prep time for both Tarea 1 y 2. So, thinking about time management, my pro tip is that you also learn how to write in that blank piece of paper. So, in your exam, during your exam, you will be allowed to take this paper with you. It's just that you won't be allowed to read from it word by word. It is there to serve you as a guide on which you have maybe noted down some ideas just to make sure they are organized. But under no circumstance are they going to allow you to read from it word by word. So, you don't need to write in that paper full sentences, making sure you've written each and every single word. Again, I say this because you're going to spend too much time doing that and waste your prep time in doing that. And secondly, it's not going to serve you in the exam. You're not going to be able to read from it. So, please, beforehand, practice how you are going to take some kind of notes, any kind of visual aid or something that's going to help yourself to read from the paper by taking a quick glance at it. What I would do, how I would write on my reference paper, on my rough paper, is that I would start with my intro sentence. That is again if I needed to write that, because I always had a template prepared. I'm gonna share that soon. But yes, sometimes I would have something about the intro written there. I would then have, okay, which propuesta am I speaking about? Number one, maybe propuesta dos. Okay, what am I speaking about here? Is there something special I'm using here? Is there some vocabulary that I need to remember? Point number two, am I using an advanced phrase here? Write that down. Propuesta number three, am I sneaking in a subjuntivo over here? Write that down. And a basic conclusion and a summary to my entire monologue. These are just key points that I would highlight. And the most important thing to keep in mind here is the coherencia, is how directed and continuous your monologue feels. So I would try to do that. I would try to find a connection between all my propuestas just so that it feels like a very organized monologue. It doesn't feel like isolated points just being spoken. So you have to be smart about only noting these things, okay, using your time to think and prepare instead of writing everything word to word. Please do not spend time doing that because it's not going to serve you. Like I said, a few things that you can note down in your rough piece of paper is number one, any kind of advantage or disadvantage, or to whom is this point or this proposal an advantage, or to whom is it a disadvantage. Two, again, you can make sure that when you specify the second propuesta, you are using some kind of an advanced sentence structure. So you mentioned something like that. Speak about the next propuesta, which is the third propuesta. Make sure to use a subjuntivo. Now I'm just saying this because that is how I prepared for it. Number two was always an advanced phrase. Number three was always a subjunctive. So you can plan this, you can work with this, but this is just me giving you ideas of what I did. And number four used to be some kind of an opinion, a personal opinion, where most of the times again I used a subjuntivo. After you've spoken about at least four propuestas, I would also make sure to add an ending line, in conclusion, something something, and a very generic line that would also end my presentation. So all of these points, just make sure that they seem coherent, they seem well connected and not very isolated. And I think you can do that with some practice. Speaking of the template that I mentioned, I know that we can't be prepared for every single thing in the examination, but you can definitely be smart about things. So after a lot of studying and a lot of research and also concerns over time management, I drafted a very generic template for myself that was something that I always used by modifying it in different scenarios according to the questions that I had. So to begin, you can use a sentence like, voy a hablar de un tema que sin duda nos afecta de alguna manera. Or you can say, es un placer para mí poder hablar de este tema que considero crucial a nuestra sociedad. So the beauty of these kinds of sentences is that they're so generic that you can use them for any kind of topic that you will receive in the exam. So you just have to be smart about it and relate it, and it's always beneficial to have something like this prepared beforehand. So once you've spoken about this, you can then directly dive into the propuestas. And here's a little bit of tip that you can use to make your propuesta sound well connected and coherent. En primer lugar, en cuanto a la propuesta, uno o dos, me parece una buena idea, me parece una mala idea, or any other connectors such as desde mi punto de vista, por un lado, por otro lado, etc. For the second propuesta, you can start by saying en segundo lugar, sin embargo, con relación a la segunda propuesta, en mi opinión, or you can say es justo o es injusto que, es necesario, es innecesario que, and a subjunctive tense. Continuando a la propuesta 3, no pienso que o no me parece que, más subjuntivo. Por ejemplo, no me parece que sea necesario o tenga sentido. Contribuyan positivamente. So there you go with your subjuntivo. And para terminar, la última propuesta, cuyo objetivo es la. So once you've spoken about all these propuestas, you can then also provide a small conclusion by saying, en conclusión, o para resumir, quiero decir que so and so. Keeping in mind the above points, your generic template is going to sound something like this. En primer lugar, en cuanto a la propuesta 1, me parece una buena idea, porque fomenta so and so. Sin embargo, con relación a la propuesta 2, en mi opinión, es algo injusto porque no beneficia a todas de la misma manera. Continuando a la propuesta 3, no pienso que sea necesario implementarla, ya que podría generar más problemas que soluciones. Para terminar, la última propuesta, cuyo objetivo es mejorar algo, me parece interesante, pero habría que analizarla más a fondo. En conclusión, quiero decir, cada propuesta tiene ventajas y desventajas, pero creo que la mejor opción es la propuesta. Repeating myself again to remind you that you have to speak for about 3 to 4 minutes. So go slow, make sure you're clear with your words, and make sure to use at least 4 propuestas. Once you have completed your monologue, the examiner is then going to have a basic conversation with you by asking you about 2 to 3 questions about these propuestas and what you've spoken about. They might ask you to explain further why you said something, or they might ask you why not this or why not that, why do you think this is an advantage, why do you think this is a disadvantage, and they may even ask you, if you don't mention it already, what do you think is the best option out of all that is available. So please prepare in advance some kind of questions that you may expect someone to ask you if they hear you speak about this topic. Remember that if the examiner asks you something and you don't quite catch it at first, it is okay to ask them to repeat the question kindly. ¿Podría repetir la pregunta, por favor? ¿Puede repetir la pregunta? It's better to ask them to repeat the question than provide a wrong answer. Just remember some things that you should just be calm, not nervous, that's going to affect your speech. Make sure that you speak clearly, not too fast, not too slow. Make sure that you're maintaining good vocabulary, showing off your skills using good connectors and good subjuntivo. And well, also have fun during the exam. I certainly did. So that was Tarea 1 of the examen de expresión e interacción orales. I will soon have you a new video of the Tarea dos and the tres coming up on the channel. So please stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching and buena suerte.